Today's topic, 7 money mistakes to avoid as a couple. Now, I can give you some real life experiences here. Almost married for 10 years. Most importantly, to my high school sweetheart, will put us at 17 years. So in terms of couples finances, I have some miles there. But we are also a financial planning firm. So we work with couples day in and day out. So this was one of those topics that we see come up every now and then that could be that soft side of money, right? Kind of those conversations that no one really likes to have. So what a great place to put it, right? Let's drop it on YouTube. So we're going to put 7 things to think about in a couple, whether that is just you starting to date, whether that's a significant other, whether that's your spouse of 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, good for you. We want to cover some of these things that you should keep in mind. And it's going to have a little bit of everything. We're going to have, the proper ways to think about life insurance and disability insurance, budgeting, money secrets. So we're going to walk through 7 really good things to keep in mind, really avoid, to make sure not only you're financially strong, but your relationship is even stronger. So stay tuned. That's all coming up next. Number 1, not knowing your partner's spending habits. Now, as I noted at the intro, I married my high school sweetheart. That was before all these cool kid dating apps came out. But I've always made the joke, why don't they ask for credit scores on dating apps, right? That's one of the biggest decisions you have to make is, who are you going to get into a relationship with in their financial background? So the first one we have on our list here is just spending habits. And I also am a very large voter for date nights around money dates, right? Having these conversations doesn't mean that you have to go to the fanciest restaurant. That's something that you do value. Maybe you do that. But it could just be something simple where you grab a coffee, right? And you kind of talk through these things. But spending habits are really important. No matter where you are in life, right? Again, dating, getting serious, married for many years, knowing each other's spending habits is so important. And I'd say the sooner you know this, the better, right? That's kind of one of those scary ones where like, hey, we just got married. Wow, you really like Louis Vuittons, or you really like expensive trucks. Knowing this sooner than later is better, which is why I always make my joke about the credit scores on the dating apps, but having that conversation of spending habits and not just how you spend money, because I'm always the biggest one yelling from the rooftops on, I don't care what you spend money on, just make sure it's something that you truly value. And the nice thing about money is, right, if you take it from this bucket, well, then you probably affected this bucket. And if you put it in this bucket, well, what other bucket did it come from? And that's why having that conversation on spending habits, and probably more importantly, the values behind those spending habits, that's number 1. Let's start there on just having an open conversation on the spending habits and also the values behind those spending habits. Number 2, not talking about money. I recently sent an email to a client because this client kept sending me emails that would say, hey, I just had this conversation with my friend. And it's almost a weird email to get because money topics are still so taboo. Whether that's with a friend or your significant other or your spouse or someone you just started dating, just having the conversation about money is important, right? When's the last time you sat down and reviewed your balance sheet together, right? I know what you're saying, like, wow, Chad, this is going to be worse than watching paint dry, but it's not, right? This is important stuff. It's important to sit down and see, here's my assets, here's my liabilities, here's my net worth, here's my income, here's my expenses, here's my, my fun money per se. Walking through money and the goals behind the money and why you're doing this and why it goes into this bucket and not that bucket is really important. And for whatever reason, it's still taboo. And I know I said this in the first point too, but make a thing of having financial dates, right? Whether that's coffee, whether that's a fun lunch someday, whether that's, a nice dinner, but the main agenda item is you just talking about money, maybe reviewing some stuff. But number 2 on the list, just make talking about money not taboo anymore. Again, this one's more about the couples for this video, but even outside of that, having those conversations, being transparent, being open, I think it puts all of us in a better place in the long term. So number 2, it's okay to talk openly about your money. Please do. Number 3, the B word, budget. And I know what you're thinking. These first 3 all kind of interrelated, a little bit intertwined. They are. I don't disagree with that, but they all have their own rhymes and reason. Budgeting, right? Having an actual budget. And I'm sure I'd love for you to have maybe one household budget. We know it doesn't always work that simple, right? You might be, I always will tell clients, we have clients that have been married for 20 years and they almost live completely separate financial lives, but they know what's going on. And that's the main part there. But budgeting and understanding, like, here's my money in, here's my money out, here's my money in, here's my money out. Or, in a perfect world, great. It's a joint budget, it's easy to follow, but it doesn't always work that way. And to each their own. I don't care how you do it, just make sure you're doing it. But number 3 on the list is make sure that you're budgeting, make sure you're taking the time to budget. If this is one of your first times stumbling upon one of our videos, great budgeting software can make this easier. We are a big fan of a newer software that we started to use called Monarch. Tiller is a really popular one. YNAB, YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. Technology can make it a lot easier, can also give you both access to see a spot where you both can log in and see the budget, whether it's a joint budget or your 2 individual budgets. Number 3 on the list, please have budget conversations and understand the moving parts that come with your cash flow day in, day out. Number 4 on the list, long-term goals, or what I call long-term financial planning. Now, not that uncommon to not talk about this. Again, financial planning firm, this is one of the most important conversations we have, especially early on. And I am always shocked. I should say I'm not shocked anymore. When we ask some of our questions on, hey, so what's ultimately your retirement goal or your financial independence goal? What's the goal for kids planning? And for the most part, we're a virtual firm. So our client that we're staring through this camera on the Zoom stare at each other and they go, I don't know. We never really talked about that. And then one will say, well, I don't want him to have any school debt. And the other will say, well, we want him to have a little bit of school hard knocks in there too. And all of a sudden we realize that they may have been married for 10 years, maybe longer than that. They've never had that conversation. So have those conversations. Again, no matter where you are in the journey, whether you just met yesterday, that might be a little early for long-term planning conversations, but early on in a relationship, right before you tie the knot or the knot has been tied for many years, having that conversation, right? And long-term planning includes a lot of important decisions, right? Think like earlier on, what's your goal for financial independence? What's your goal for retirement planning? Is there goals for vacation homes? What about K through 12? That's another common argument, right? No, we want him to go to public school. I went to public school. Look, I'm normal. No, I wanted to go to private school because I wanted to have the best education possible. And we butt heads a little bit. That's good though. It's good. It's better to have these conversations sooner than later, especially on your own terms compared to sitting on a Zoom staring at a financial advisor. And now you're like, sugar, we never had that conversation. So number 4 on the list, long-term conversations in terms of longer-term planning, longer-term goals. I think the big ones are usually going to be like retirement planning. Sometimes I like to use the word financial independence a little bit more than retirement planning, education goals for our kids, whether that's K through 12, whether that's college planning, different types of home buying. There's a lot of important long-term conversations that you don't need to nail it right now. You don't have to have perfect, but making sure you understand where your spouse, significant other are in terms of those goals is going to be really helpful everyone in the long term. Number 5 on the list, one person controls the family's finances. And I thought about this one and I thought, I'm going to use myself as an example. I'm not good at this one. I wish I should have did a cameo. I should have my wife come up for this. I don't know if it's because I am a financial planner. I don't know if it's because I obviously enjoy the numbers and maybe she doesn't enjoy the numbers as much, but this is one where I feel like I do too much and I don't involve her enough. And that's a very common conversation, right? Even when we get on what we call our icebreaker call with new clients, there's usually only one spouse on the call. And we say every family has a CFO. It might be closer to a joint role, but for the most part, every family has a CFO. And if you're sitting here watching this right now, you could probably say like, no, they're the CFO. No, I'm the CFO. And that's very common, but you can fix that. And we'll often tell our clients too, when they join us, we do need both of you on these calls, whether it's the plan presentation, whether it's your review meetings. Now, every now and then, again, especially working with physicians day in, day out, do we know schedules change? We do, we get it. But for the bulk of our meetings, we want everyone on the same page. So number 5 on the list is personal finance. And let me tell you where this is also very scary. And I know we all think we're invincible, but unfortunately we know there are premature deaths. And if the CFO of the family is the one to pass away, this can be very, very stressful on the spouse, significant other that was not the CFO. And it is a very large learning curve. And that is why it is very important to make sure that you're doing these things together and that you are on the same page and understanding where things are and why we're doing it this way, as opposed to just one person knows everything. And like I said, I'll be the first to throw myself under the bus there. This is one area out of this list that I feel like personally I can improve on. But again, working with clients day in and day day out. This is one that we see quite a bit. This one is extremely common. So number 5, don't allow any control freaks to take over the family finances. Number 6, money secrets. In short, don't do it. It's not good. It's not good on a lot of levels, right? This is one of those ones that you want to avoid at all costs. We have seen, luckily not often, this put immense strain on relationships. And, I can't tell you like, hey, is there a certain dollar threshold? Like, hey, I go to Target and drop $25 on a bi-weekly basis and I don't tell my spouse. I don't know. Maybe that is, right? Maybe that's too much. Or, hey, I love Louis Vuittons. I have a completely hidden closet. My spouse does not know about any of them. And I drop a couple grand. Okay, that's probably getting closer to like, that's probably labeled as a money secret, right? But I'm not the one to tell you kind of where that range is. But regardless, be transparent with your spouse, your significant other on what you're spending money on, because it's not that it's my money versus their money. It's just being on the same page and understanding, and go back to the point Lomi said, right? Your values behind it, making sure that it does fit the financial picture. There's nothing more terrifying than, again, having one of these conversations with new clients and we find out about that other credit card. That's what we're trying to avoid here. So number 6 on the list, please, 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 please don't keep money secrets. Last but not least, number 7, life insurance and disability insurance. As I often say, there is nothing more important for your family than likely these 2 insurances. And I always say we are a flat fee advisor. We don't sell anything. So this is not a sales pitch, but these are really important topics. I'm going to start with disability insurance. Disability insurance is extremely vital because what does it do? It replaces your income. And depending on where you are in terms of current income, but also in terms of age, right? How long is your runway? A 30-year-old physician making $500,000 per year, 30 more years to work. That is a mega large number, right? We're talking millions upon millions of dollars that you're trying to insure with this disability insurance. So it becomes a very large number. I mean, just imagine the amount of strain that would put on your spouse, significant other, your family, if you had an unfortunate event where you can't go to work, right? Hopefully it's short term, maybe it's a couple years, but what if it's not, right? What if it's a lot more serious than that? That's why disability insurance is very important. And then on top of that, I'd say life insurance, term life insurance. This is one where it's really not even just trying to replace your income, right? This could be trying to do a lot of things. Now, most of the times I usually describe life insurance as this. If someone relies on your income, you need to have life insurance. Now, this video is made for couples. I'm going to assume that there is some form of reliance on the other at this point. And sometimes it's just numbers, maybe it's actual cash flow, but also just the fact of having a partner, right? And if you would lose that partner, there is a lot of emotions you have to go through. And the last thing you want to worry about is, I also have to go make extra money now to make the bills work. So having that life insurance in place to provide financial help, mental help, so many different levels of importance can come with that. That life insurance is so important to have that in place. And you can talk through this, again, another money conversation with your spouse, significant other, in terms of how much, right? If something happens to me, what needs to be done? Well, let's at least get the mortgage paid off. Let's put enough away to get the kids to school. Let's put a little bit of aside just to kind of replace what your income was going to be. And that should be more than enough, right? I'm just throwing ideas out there for you, but disability, life insurance, I probably could have put these up at the top of the list. I think these probably get a lot more important the further you are in a relationship, closer to marriage or engaged, right? Like this is your partner for life, right? Not to say that they're not important even in the dating phase, but I think this probably gets a little bit more important later on in the relationship, which is why I did keep it at number 7 here, but I could easily probably move this up to number 1 as well. So number 7, proper life insurance, disability insurance. Avoid having the mistake of not having them at all or not having enough. So check on your risk management numbers. And there you have it. 7 money mistakes to avoid as a couple. As I said, a little bit of everything in there, right? We went from insurance planning to budgeting to money date night, but these are important things to be discussing with your spouse or significant other. If someone out there is watching this and you created one of the dating apps, maybe you take the lead on that. You start adding some credit scores in there. I think that'd be really helpful, right? I think that's a good thing to add in there. But hopefully you get something out of this, whether a few of these pertain to you, maybe none of them do. Like I said, I want to throw myself under the bus there for number 5. That's something that I can improve on. So I hope you enjoyed this. As always, thanks for hanging out with me for the last 15 minutes or so. If you have not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe now. Remember, if you click on the little bell icon, you also get notification every time we release a new video. And they are coming at you weekly now. And please continue to share comments and feedback because we are taking that feedback and the comments that you're dropping us and we're creating more content from that. So as always, thanks for hanging out with me here for a bit and I'll catch you on the next video.